In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to graft together two sets of stitches using a Kitchener stitch graft. Specifically, this design is knit in the round, so I'll also show you how to finish it up when you get to the end of the round for a nice seamless finish. So let's get started. Okay, so I have two sets of stitches on two different needles here. So I have a circular needle that goes along the bottom, and then I've picked up stitches that are on this top needle. These lower stitches are the ones that I have live, so it's still connected to live yarn. And what I'm going to do first, I cut a length of yarn. Here's the end that I cut. And I'm going to thread this onto a yarn needle or some blunt tipped tapestry needle. I'm going to thread it on there. I really enjoy Kitchener stitch because it is a lot like hand sewing and stitching, and I think it's really fun. So what we're going to do first, since this one is going to be worked in the round, I'm going to put a removable stitch marker on my first needle of each, or first stitch of each needle. So I'm going to put one here on the first stitch of this lower needle, and I'm going to place one on the first stitch of the upper needle. Open this little guy up. Because at the end of the round we will need to come back to these specific stitches and finish up our Kitchener stitch. Okay, so we'll try to ignore the stitch markers there for now, but what we are doing is taking our needle and we are going into the first stitch of the first needle. This is the lower needle. And we are going into it as if we were going to knit it. So we're approaching from this direction as if we're going to knit it. And we're going to pull our yarn all the way through. This is kind of a long length of yarn because I have a lot of stitches. Okay, we pulled it all the way through. And once you've done that, you can slide that stitch off the needle. And then you're going into the next stitch as if to purl it, like this. And you're going to pull your yarn all the way through, but not pull this stitch off the needle. So it's going to stay right there. Okay. We're working in sets of two stitches on the front, 2 stitches on the back, and going back and forth. So now we're going to move to the back needle here. On this needle, flip that out of the way, we're going to go into the first stitch as if to purl it. And this one can slide off the needle while you pull your yarn all the way through. And I've got a long length of yarn here. Okay, and now we're going to go into the second stitch as if to knit it, and we're going to leave it on the needle. So this one we're not pulling off. So we're going to start working a pattern of pulling off the first stitch and leaving the second one on the needle. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the front, bottom needle here. We're going to go into the first stitch as if to knit it and pull it off, and into the second stitch as if to purl it and leave it on. So now I'm going to pull my yarn all the way through. See, I cut out a couple steps there. You can kind of streamline the process of pulling your yarn through. Okay, now I'm on the back needle again. Into the first stitch as if to purl it, pull it off the needle, and into the second stitch as if to knit it and leave it on, and then pull my yarn all the way through. So that's the little mantra, if you will, that I chant to myself: as if to knit, as if to purl, and then pull it through. And then as if to purl, as if to knit, and leave it on. One helpful way to remember this is that whatever you do to the first stitch is dictated by how it looks. So on this needle, all the stitches look like knit stitches. So the first thing that you do is as if to knit it. As if to knit, pull it off. As if to purl, leave it on. And then when you look at the back stitches, or the back needle, all of these stitches that you see are purl stitches. So the first one that you do is as if to purl, pull it off, and then the second one is as if to knit and leave it on. Now as I'm pulling my yarn through, you can see that what it's doing is creating like a duplicate stitch in between these rows, these needles, and it makes it look seamless and really smooth. So I'm just going to repeat this process all the way around until I get to the end, and then I'll come back and show you how it changes a little bit because it is in the round. Okay, I'm back here at the end of the round now. You can see how nice that Kitchener graft looked here. You can barely even see which line of stitches it was that we created. I am running out of yarn, which is unfortunate, but I'm still going to be able to show you this last thing. So I'm on the last couple of stitches, so I've got a couple more left. I'm on the front needle as if to knit and as if to purl, and then the back needle as if to purl, as if to knit. And then when we're left with only two needles, or two stitches here, one on each needle, this is where it gets kind of tricky for in the round, because our steps involve two stitches on each needle, as if to purl and as if to knit, and then as if, or you know, as if to knit and purl, and then purl and knit, but we only have one on each needle. So the way that we fix this in the round, I'm just going to stick that in there for a second. The way that we fix this is to go back and get these stitches that we put on hold and make those our second stitches. And so I'm just going to slide these needles to the other end here so I can pick them up. So now I can take, before we lose them all, I can take my bottom needle and slip it into that held stitch on the bottom. And try to do this without losing any stitches. I'm going to take that out. Okay, and then on my top needle here, I'm going to slip it into the held stitch there, and then remove that needle marker, and then I'm just going to do a little loop-de-switch to the other end here. And voila, now we have two stitches on each needle, so we can complete our as if to knit and as if to purl. Purl that through, and as if to purl, as if to knit. Now we can pull those out. Now I gotta do a little bit of tightening here. Okay, so we've got them all tightened up. Now it's a fairly smooth finish with no hole there from the beginning to the end. Then we just tie these two ends together, and then we can hide them inside the layer here that we created. So just a little square knot. And then I like to put it on a needle. We're just going to bury these ends inside and just go right to where that knot is coming out. Go right in there. Pull that through. Okay, and now that it's all tucked in, we can just trim the edge here, right close to the fabric. And that is how you do a Kitchener stitch in the round and close it up with no visible hole. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Thank you so much for watching.